I'm based in the Fens, which some people assume must be quite bleak at this time of year, but I genuinely love living here in the winter because of some great wildlife on my doorstep. In this part of the Fens, between October and about February, there's a lot of whooper swans that feed on the fields and roost on the washes. And throughout the winter, I've spent a lot of time watching them and studying their behaviour. Travelling around 700 miles from Iceland, whooper swans migrate to the Fens for the winter. Hundreds of them feed in the fields here. Watching them through my telescope, I pick out family groups. The juveniles have a greyer plumage, and their calls are a little bit more higher pitched. It's very quiet here by the river, as in there's no other people around, but there's a lot of bird song. I can hear all sorts of things, and amongst the chorus, there's whooper swans. They're on the washes behind the bank, and I'm just waiting for the first ones to fly out to feed for the day. On some special mornings, as well as swans, I've had cranes flying over, with numbers ranging between 15 and an impressive 54, another magical sight and sound. The mute swans that we see in the UK all year round were in actual fact introduced, either by the Romans or during the 12th century. So before that time, swans would only have been seen at this time of year. I imagine that they must have really brightened up people's lives during the winter months. I feel that same sense of excitement every year when the first whooper swans arrive in autumn. The sun's just gone down, and on the field in front of me there's about 60 whooper swans, and I know that it's only a matter of time before they fly overhead to the washes behind me to roost for the night. Just a few days into January, this group of about 700 whooper swans started feeding on the fields outside my house. They fly right over the street at about 8 a.m. in the morning, their calls audible above the village and making the perfect start to my day. And they stay feeding on the fields until dusk. There was sugar beet grown in these fields last year, and a few tops were left behind after it was harvested, which you can see have been nibbled by the swans. Sugar beet is a valuable food source for them, as are potatoes and cereals. As darkness falls, the swans return to the safety of the washes to roost overnight. As you can see, the power lines are barely a metre below the swans' flight path. Unfortunately, I found 2 swans that had struck the lines and been killed, one adult and one juvenile. In misty conditions such as these, it can be very difficult for the swans to see the power lines. Many of the power lines in this part of the Fens now have glowing, spinning reflectors. These are more visible to swans, enabling them to avoid power lines even in the dark and the mist. Since discovering the 2 swans, we got in touch with UK power networks, and they were very quick to respond and have been very helpful, which is great. I've spent a lot of happy hours counting the whooper swans here, and this morning, scanning through them with my telescope, I picked out 2 Buick swans. They have a little less yellow and a bit more black on their bills, and they're slightly smaller in size. It's quite a serene scene here at the moment, with the swans calmly feeding and resting. But I have to say, unfortunately, there has been some frustrating moments where I've seen dogs off leads running through the middle of the flock, causing them to panic and take flight, stopping them from resting and from feeding, and causing them to expend energy, which can be detrimental in the harsh winter conditions. It's important that they're not disturbed. And when you really appreciate these creatures, you get a real sense of admiration for them and a great love, and that's what I feel every day when I see them in the winter. Listening to and watching these wonderful wild birds has really brightened up my winter.
White feathers in the sky, in the sky, in the sky.
now as the days are getting longer and the temperatures are getting warmer, it's not going to be long before they start heading off to their breeding grounds, and I'll be bidding them a fond farewell, but looking forward to the wonderful spring wildlife that lays just around the corner.
Hush, they're flying in. Hear the wind blow, feel my heart slow. Watch their wings. Dusk is falling down. They're swimming, shimmering the water. White feathers in the sky, in the sky, in the sky. White feathers.